Things have got off to a perfect start for Dean Wallis, who joins us on the line. Dean, thanks for chatting to us in bye week for your club on EDFL Radio.
Thank you very much, fellas, for having me.
So, a great win for your team last week. Hard not to get carried away, I suppose, because everything must have looked really nice and come to fruition. But it is only 1 week. How hard was it to keep a lid on things after the win against East Keilor?
No, not very hard, mate. We're still in learning, still got the training wheels on, so we're in a learning transition, and obviously with how this system works from the bush footy, if you want to call it that, where you're limited to your training elements through cricket and so forth. We haven't had the ability to implement running patterns and sort of styles of play because of you're sort of dodging cricketers all summer. So yeah, we've got a lot of work to do, and hopefully you'll see the best part of Doutta sort of probably towards the middle of the year.
Dino, Addam, Saricaoglu here, mate. Congratulations on the start to the season. Your boys have managed to have and obviously your first game as coach. Going back to the start of the summer when you took the job, what were some of the main considerations, especially for a club coming down from the top division and from what we hear on the outside, pretty keen to get back up. So when you did put pen to paper, what were some of those things that were going through your mind, and I suppose the clubs as well?
Yeah, well, I presented to the club. I actually helped do this towards the end of last year, and I just presented to the committee on. I've been part of Doutta Star since 1987 when I arrived in Melbourne from the bush when I come down to play for Essendon. So it's been my local club, and I just sort of presented something to them from a club point of view, not really focusing too much on football, but just a generic sort of presentation, and they potentially offered me the job, and I sort of walked away sort of umming and ahhing, but I just said to them that we need to become elite at the little things, and that's on and off the field, and I think there's no rocket science behind this industry, and when I took the job on, I sat in front of the players and I said, if you think I've come over with a magic formula from an AFL system, well, you're kidding yourself, and the simple formula is it's hard work and playing as a team, and underlying that, there's obviously a lot of things that take place, but there's no rocket science. It's just about surrounding yourself with good people. I've got amazing support from the coaching and support staff, and everyone's getting their hands dirty and rolling their sleeves up, and it's been, so far, forget about the win-loss ratio. We've obviously played three practice games in round one. It's just everyone's beating the same drum, and we're all sort of, keen to do well, and B grade, we don't want to be there forever, and we want to turn it around as quick as we can.
It is an interesting start to your schedule, considering you came up last week against the team promoted from the old C grade from Division 2, and now you've got the bye. Just firstly on last week, I know coaches aren't too keen to comment on oppositions, but what was your read on East Keilor? Because from the outside, it does seem as though they are going to struggle this year. What do you think they'll be able to bring to the table this year when they are at their best?
Yeah, honestly, this system's all new to me. We haven't got the luxury of analysing opposition through video or statistics or whatever. So it was my first look at East Keilor. They got some exciting talent there, and it's just a matter of it all coming together. And you're only as good as your opposition too. Some weeks we had a bit of a day out. We had 13 different goal kickers. We played some pretty exciting footy. But that's only lasts as long as it's only good as your last game, really. So East Keilor will bounce back, no doubt. We had a very passionate coach. I heard him going nuts at half time. So no doubt they would have worked on a few things during the week. And that's footy. If you don't come to play every week 100%, you'll get your pants pulled down. And if you take East Keilor lightly, they'll tear you apart.
Freight Train, Adrian Jamison here. How are you, mate?
Jambo, what's happening?
Now, what are your plans for the weekend with the group? Did you train this morning, or I believe you're going up to watch Maribyrnong today?
Yeah, we empowered a couple of sherbets on the hill, mate. We empowered the leadership group, and they took training this morning down the beach. I went for a bit of a run and a bit of a splash in the water, and I was down there early, and I went over and watched the 18s, and just headed home to have a bite to eat, mate, and I'll go out and watch Maribyrnong. So obviously we play them next week, and it'll be a good opportunity to sit down and just see how they go about their business, and hopefully we can pick holes through them and come up against them next week and try and come away with a win.
And Dan, you mentioned sessions at the beach. I mean, we're up at Greenvale today where one major problem they had last season was Adam McPhee simply brought too much AFL jargon with him back to local footy, and it wouldn't translate and relate to local footballers. And how tough is the balance between making sure you've got the cutting edge tactics, but you can make it relatable to local footballers and keep it fun for them so they don't disengage? How do you strike a balance there between keeping up with the modern development and evolution of AFL, but also making sure that your players don't tune out as soon as you start talking to them?
Yeah, well, my philosophy might be different to a lot of others, and I've got empathy for every player that plays the game, whether it's AFL or EDFL. And I said to every person that I've basically come across from a recruiting point of view that has either been with us or has come on board, family number one, work number two, footy number three. And I found that, and it's about honesty too. We've put a policy in place that, if you can't turn up, just pick the phone up and ring. I understand it is social. There's a little bit of an earn in it for, some of them, and that's realistic. That's the EDFL. That's local footy. So the expectations of them, we want self-motivated players, and we've created an environment that they want to do that. And they're not accountable to me or our match committee. They're accountable to each other, and that's the environment we're building. You either embrace it and be part of it, or the system will force you out, and that's at every level. So we've just put a slight tweak on what I've sort of experienced over my 28 years in footy. It's not sheep stations, and it is, end of the day, it is only a game, and it's called football, and it's sport. And if your motivation is you're not coming there because it's not fun, well, the motivation, we need to look at it, and the individual needs to look at it.
And I know we haven't talked about too many specific players, but how far away is Cade Carey? Because he's a name that carries so much history in this competition in the EDFL, and he's someone that always has a bit of mystique around him and a lot of anticipation whenever it's seen as though he might be a chance to play. So is he any chance of lining up on Anzac Day? And if he's not, how far away is he from actually playing in the seniors?
Yeah, we might roll him out this week. It'll be a great tussle. The close up one in, and Cade, and fortunately or unfortunately, if we get our two other boys from Glenroy across the line, Ronaldson and Clyde, you've got three big key players playing at one end, and you've got the Cloaks at the other end. It'd be pretty exciting game for bush footy.
All right, well, Dean, thank you so much for joining us on EDFL Preview. Enjoy the week off. We'll be at DS Aitken Reserve on Anzac Day for the match between Craigieburn and Essendon Doutta, so we think it's going to be a cracker, and hopefully the game lives up to the billing as well. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to chatting throughout the course of the season.
Thanks, fellas.
We've got a special guest with us in the commentary box off the top of the show. Daniel Trimarchi is a 12-year EDFL umpire, and he joins us to give us an update on the state of all things umpiring. I'm going to tip you in, Daniel, because I asked Ken Waters and Rowan Saws at the EDFL office to give us an umpire who's good with the media. I basically said, I want to pick the umpires for Greenvale versus Avondale Heights today. They said no, but they did give me you. So obviously they think you're ready to take this interview on. Welcome to EDFL Preview. How are you?
Cheers, thank you for having me. It's good to be here, and it is good to get this game. It should be a ripping contest.
Now, who did you have last week in round one?
Last week I was down at Airport West taking on Keilor.
What did you make of that? Because we saw the quarter-time score, and it certainly raised a lot of eyebrows, but out there on the field, I mean, it ended up being a 70-point win for Keilor, but did it actually feel like a blowout by the final quarter?
Look, starting off, Airport West came out really strong, and I mean, they were leading until halfway through the second quarter and looked good. And then Keilor, after a fair spray from Mick at quarter time, were able to come out and get the job done in the second half. But it was a good game of footy.
So you've got a high-pressure game like today, big stage broadcast game, and I'm going to pile it on even more because now with the filming of games, you may have seen Rowan Saws put out a bit of a review video for the umpires during the week with match footage from West Coburg versus Northern Saints last week, reviewing some of the decisions. How much does something like that put pressure on you, but also help during the week when you actually get to go back and review your performance, and rather than watching, say, the AFL video, which feels a bit disconnected from local footy, how much more educational is it to see local grounds, people you recognise, the grounds you recognise, and in this case, yourself actually making those umpiring decisions out there?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we used that footage on Thursday night. Down at Windy Hill, we've got great facilities, so Rowan had that cut up and on the big screen, and we went through a few decisions, things that he was really happy with, and also always things that we can improve on. So having that footage of local footy does make a massive difference for us. So a little bit of extra pressure because I know that the guys will get me on Thursday if I do miss a few. But really good coaching tool. So really glad that we've got access to that.
Daniel, you've been going the best part of a decade now, if not a little more. Last year, Rowan was probably the recruit of the year in the EDFL. Funnily enough, it was as the umpire's sort of advisor, mentor. What impact has he had since he's come on board?
Oh, it's been massive to have Rowan on board. We've been lucky. I mean, the 10 years I've been there, we've always had some really good coaches, guys that have had a lot of local experience and been through the ranks. Having Rowan, who spent 16 years at the top job at the AFL, he's just added a whole nother level of professionalism, which he's really trying to instill in the guys. We're really looking to take that next step as a, I don't want to say as a club, but as a group, to really try and get to that level that a lot of the footy clubs and the EDFL as a whole is now striving towards.
So how do you find it now? Like, you know, we've become a very successful league with the quality of recruits that we're getting. The game has got so quick. Now, you're obviously still part-time. You called yourself a 12-year local veteran before. I won't use the word that you actually said, but how do you find the speed of the game? Like, are you totally exhausted by the end of the game?
Oh, definitely. I think over the last 2 or 3 years, with the recruits that have come back to local footy, we've seen the speed pick up a lot, and having 3 umpires in every Premier Division game is something Rowan pushed for, and luckily enough, this week and last week, we've had 3 in every game, which has made our life a lot easier. You still walk off the ground buggered at the end of the game, but it really, I think, lifts the standard of umpiring as well. You've got someone at either end looking for those marking contests, protecting the forwards, but also at all times always trying to protect the ball player.
Can I throw one out there?
Yep.
Best recruit you've seen in the EDFL in the last 5 years. Who would you say would be the number one?
I think seeing what Andrew Brown does at Keilor, I think, and I mean winning the medal last year, it's obviously not just my opinion, but the dominance he's had in the centre when you're in there and the way he marshals the troops, I'd probably say he'd be up there.
Bit of a curly one because there was a little bit of controversy last week in Div 1, Craigieburn, Glenroy. Across the 3 divisions, is there any particular division that is harder to umpire in terms of, I suppose, the mentality some teams use? Obviously at the top level in Premier, very professional, but as you go down in lower divisions, there are some clubs that Adrian, maybe stuck 1 or 2 decades behind some other clubs in terms of how they go about it on the field. So as an umpire, are you conscious of sort of a different way you need to, I suppose, officiate a game depending on what level the 2 clubs are at?
Rowan's tried to really instill something in us from day one. It's really protect the ball player, especially the head. And he says that from the under-10s right up to senior A-grade Premier footy. So that's our key constant message. You do find, I mean, as you go down, compare juniors to seniors or Premier Division to Div 2, the standards do change, but we try and keep our umpiring as consistent as possible. But you do often try and hold your vision, or you understand the dynamics of a game and try and read it. But the main thing that I think Rowan's pushing for is that consistency.
What is the toughest rule that's been implemented in the AFL that just doesn't translate to local footy? I mean, I know that we very rarely see the sliding rule paid in the AFL, never mind in local footy, but that's a recent one that's been brought in. Hands in the back, I think, has actually transitioned down reasonably well. You don't see too many blatant pushes in the back being gotten away with by umpires, but is there one that collectively across the umpiring fraternity that whenever you hear about it, you think, wow, when's the last time I actually paid one of those decisions?
I mean, you get your few blue mooners every now and then. The rushed behind, I mean, it's in, but I've never seen it paid at local league.
Deliberate out of bounds, tough one?
Deliberate out of bounds, they've gotten stronger on over the last couple of years. And sometimes players, I mean, when it comes in from a boundary throw and it's punched back over on the full, they don't realise that is deliberate automatically. So there's often those little blue mooners that do catch people out. Holding the ball's always a contentious one, with AFL guys trying to hold their whistle a bit more. To see what's out there and really let the players play.
What about dragging it in and packs on the ball? Because as you would know, often there are, ball up stoppage, boundary throw in stoppage, and those passages of play can go on for 8, 9, 10, 11 stoppages in a row for 4 or 5 minutes. And the temptation at AFL level is always to pay the free kick and get things moving, where at local footy, I think people just accept it as part of the game. So how do you find the ebb and flow of umpiring a game like that, where you know you're trapped in a holding pattern and you're watching like a hawk for the free kick to get the clearance, but you can't just pluck one. You've got to wait for there to be a free. I mean, is that easier, harder, or is that just part and parcel of what you do as an umpire these days?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's a part of local footy, especially when you get the scrappy days where it's pouring down rain and you've got 10, 15 ball-ups in a row. You look for that free kick. Has someone fallen into someone's back? Has someone got someone high? Those protective free kicks you really look for. But you also talk to the players, knock it out, punch it clear. That kind of communication and that two-way communication with the players often is the best way of getting the game flowing again.
Now, tell us a bit about the umpiring fraternity. I've been down to training a few times. It's a dynamic unlike any sporting club. It's a very different feeling because you've got boys and girls, men and women, all the way from about 13 up to 65, even 70 in the case of some of the goal umpires. So it's a collective of people that's unlike any sporting club you will see, and I'm sure people who've umpired and have gone to umpires training anywhere will know what I'm talking about. But how have you found the dynamic down there, and has a great deal changed with Rowan Saws coming in the last... He's almost up to a year now in the job.
Yep. No, well, we've got over 500 umpires on our books for the first time ever, across boundary, field, goal, senior and juniors. So the numbers are really good. We're getting, I mean, like you said, coming down, I remember when I first went down and watched the goal umpires train, and you see them sit in a circle and start signalling to each other. It's something you could put on Almost Footy Legends. But they, the dynamic is really tough, especially for our fitness guys. Nathan Lessels has come on board as our fitness advisor, and he's trying to devise programs that do suit 15-year-olds up to 70-year-olds. So there's a massive shift between the really fit guys that are looking to push up to the VFL and really looking to develop, and your senior guys who are your 40, 50-year-olds that are still running around but still very much part of the team.
It is massive these days, the physical component of umpires. I mean, we've heard talk that at AFL level they need to be able to run 10Ks in a certain amount of time and things like that. Is there too much emphasis on that, or should the priority obviously still be getting your calls right and just being able to actually umpire a game the way it's meant to be called and making sure you're making all the right calls during a game? Because it does seem like there is a little bit too much emphasis on the physical side of it sometimes. I know it's important, but what are your views on?
Yeah, look, I think fitness and decision making often go hand in hand. If you get fit enough, you'll get in the right positions and you've got the best opportunity to make the right call. But you do need that education, because even if you're there in the right position, you need to know what the right call is. So they both work hand in hand. A lot of the guys that are pushing up to the VFL, and we've had Brendan Hosking head up to the AFL, he's really been a role model for a lot of those guys coming through in the future, to really show if you put in with your fitness, really your umpiring should come up to that standard as well. So you can't really have one without the other.
And what's been your highlight of your umpiring career so far? I mean, do grand finals stand out to particular games where you had to make some tough decisions and maybe came off with a few pats on the back on the way stand out? I mean, or was it even a particularly tough game that you don't enjoy, but at least it taught you a few lessons? I mean, what is, give us a bit of context as to the highlight of your EDFL career so far?
I suppose for me personally, doing the A-grade grand final a few years back, Oak Park Strathmore, was one of the highlights. To be able to get out there and, just like the clubs, we get ranked and we get placed in our games based on our ability, and if you have a good game, you might go down, you might go up. If you have a bad game, you might spend a week in the twos. So for me, getting up to that A-grade grand final was probably the highlight. And a lot of the other guys, it's that or pushing on to the VFL and AFL.
Did you see last night's game?
No, I didn't. I was out last night.
So we can't ask about the Jamie Elliott mark then, because there's a lot of conjecture about that.
No, sorry, I haven't seen it yet. I'll have to have a look.
Has there been any changes in the interpretation of what constitutes a mark, how much control a player does need to have before you blow the whistle? Because it sort of came into his hands and straight back out, and a lot of people were suggesting...
Does anyone still out there on the ground try, I touched it 3 times, that's a mark?
Yeah.
I used to hear that a lot in the playground.
Yeah, it's the under 10 touch mark rule.
Yeah.
Yeah, so has there been any change in attitude towards how you officiate that
Not
side
that
of it,
I'm
or?
aware of. Really, for us, it is the player has to take control of the ball. If we deem him to have control of the ball and control over the ball, then it's... To me, that would be a mark. So I'll have to have a look at that one, but and see.
And a massive hanger, Windy Hill Grand Final day, I reckon it would have been paid, because we're all human and you love to see that sort of stuff.
Now, you mentioned Andrew Brown earlier. just how much time is spent in the rooms after a game deliberating the 3, 2 and 1? Because last year we had a situation where the RS Reynolds medal had about 9 players that could win heading into the final round. It's almost a statistical miracle that it didn't end up in a tie and that we had Mark Blake standing alone at the top. But given that, it's probably the last thing among 50 things the umpires would consider. You're watching for free kicks, you're looking to umpire the game, you've got your fitness to worry about to make sure you last the 4 quarters, you've got peanuts yelling over the sidelines, you've got coaches and runners in your ear, and you've got all sorts of things to worry about. And then you walk off the ground and you've got to think, hang on, who do I give the 3, 2 and 1 to? So how much time do the umpires actually spend talking about the 3, 2 and 1 at the end of a Strathmore Community Bank Premier Division game?
Well, I think for us, what we try and do is not let it get to the end of the game. So we'll touch base at quarter time, half time, 3/4 time, and see who we've gotten the best. We also rely on the boundaries and the goal umpires, because often they're in a different position to us and they see the game differently. So it's really, I suppose, looking throughout the game who we see, and often you'll have someone at halftime which you think's a shoe-in for the 3, and then they'll go quiet in the second half and really not impact the game as much, and you change it. So really it's more a continuous process, and then we'll sit at the end of the game and deliberate.
Now, just lastly, before we let you go, what are you looking forward to this season? What's the goal for you as a 12-year umpire? Is it to be back at Windy Hill on the final day? Is it to have some sort of milestone that you might tick off during the year? What is actually your goal for the season ahead?
For me, it's really umpiring. After 12 years, you see a lot of guys come and go through the ranks up to the VFL, and we've had a few guys come back. So really, for me, it's staying in that Premier Division group and getting fitter, and basically really trying to be there that last week in August or September.
Well, Daniel, thank you so much for joining us. Have a good game out there today. As you know, it's being filmed, so no pressure, and have a good season. We really appreciate you coming and representing the umpires this afternoon and giving us an update on the state of things. It's good to hear that we've passed 500 umpires for the first time, a really good sign that we're filling as many of the games as possible down the divisions. But to you personally, all the best, and thanks for coming and representing the umpires fraternity today.
No, cheers. Thank you very much for having me.
Daniel Trimarchi there from the EDFL umpires. And guys, actually, Adam's showing Daniel the controversial mark decision before he goes, so we might get your ruling on that. Mark or
thumbs
no?
Up, thumbs down.
Mark or no mark?
We're just getting another angle over here.
No.
No.
Thumbs down. See, he hits the ground and then the ball pops out.
To me, he doesn't have control till the end, so...
There you go. That was a mark, according to the umpires.
Ooh.
So that is a contender for mark of the year, a controversial one.
Oh, wow. All right, well, thank you very much, Daniel Trimarchi from the EDFL umpire. Claire, if you can hear us down there on the sidelines, take it away. You've got Rowan Nayna.
I certainly do. Thank you for talking to us today, Rowan, and congratulations on the good game.
Thank you.
How are you feeling after such a blowout of a game?
Look, it was pretty tiring. It was a good effort. It's a big ground, and you certainly feel it. It was a good bounce back for us after last week, playing on a little bit of a smaller ground, but to be back on our home deck, it was good to have a win.
Yeah, definitely. Are you confident about the rest of the season, considering you've had this excellent game?
Personally, the team. I think the team. We got some confidence, but we got some good players. We just got to work on what we want, and I think if we do that and execute that, I think there's no reason why we can't be a real contender. I think.
How is the team adopting to your new coach, Shannon Grant?
Yeah, great. Look, it's great to have someone that's sort of out of the system pretty recently, showing us some new tricks and some new plans. So, look, we're still practicing. We're getting better each week. So, closer and closer to sort of perfecting it, and we'll have better wins.
Excellent. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you, Claire. We'll let Rowan go in and sing the song.
We do have Shannon Grant now with us in the box, and he's actually just having a look at some scores from around the league. Shannon, what stands out to you there from around the grounds?
I haven't really read it yet, to be honest. It's,
okay, fair enough.
I'm not used to the Samsungs.
We'll stick to what we'll stick to what happened today here at Section Road. Well done, mate. Massive win for your boys, and a good way to bounce back after last week.
Yeah, apart from that last 30 minutes last week, we've played some pretty good footy. So we did a lot right today. The stuff that we went after, we did really well, and it was good to see him actually finish off the game and play consistently well for 4 quarters.
Shannon, congratulations on the win. I'm looking down the list, and when you match up your players with their opponents, there's not really anyone that lost. It was a very complete performance across the ground. The Campusano battle with Galea was obviously fascinating from our outlook, but you had so many winners across the ground.
Yeah, look, Campo was outstanding, like he was last week. But for me, it's not just about him winning the contest. We need to make sure that we got the right positioning, we got the right support around him when we needed to, and I thought our young defenders that are learning their game and learning their trade back there did that exceptionally well. And across the board, we played the way that we wanted to, and Campo was terrific when he had to be on his one-on-ones.
Well, you talk about young defenders. Parthenopoulos, a player who would have been completely new to you. He was the reserves best and fairest last year, got a little bit of a taste of senior footy. What did you make of him today? Because he's the sort of role player that winning teams are built around, and so important to a side like Greenvale. Yeah,
he is. He's got an enormous amount of talent. He's still got areas of his game that he needs to continue working on, but he's a young man. He's a good young kid. He wants to learn. He wants to develop. He wants to improve. So we just got to keep working with him and keep showing him vision and helping him through so we can actually get a complete player, which I think we will.
8 goals between the Marics today, and just going through the goal kickers as well. Tom Hill got one as well. So a couple of new names that we're not used to seeing in the black and green colours. It is a good side considering you've adopted what was a pretty good side anyway, but to bring some extra quality in is certainly promising. So I suppose the question is, how's it all coming together at the moment? Obviously, new coach with some new players, a couple of champs in Jorgo and Curette now gone. So it's been a summer of change at Greenvale, but how is it all coming together now, 2 games in?
Yeah, well, you look at Jorgo, Dean Smith, Cameron White. We've had a lot of experience go, but I think we've also been able to cover that and pick up some pretty experienced, well-established players as well. So they've been able to fill the void so far, but they've also been outstanding with the younger group. I think the most important thing for us, it's great to have those leaders, which we know what we're going to get every week and how they're going to play, but the work that they're doing with the younger guys around them has been outstanding as well. And the older leaders are certainly helping the younger players become better players.
You mentioned the young defence before, Shannon, but the offence and the attacking 6 were very well structured and well ordered today, and it must be pleasing that the guys that kick goals, they're difficult matchups for opposition sides. People like Ghazi and Maric, they're not necessarily tall players. They're not necessarily smalls. They can mark overhead. They're very versatile forwards, aren't they?
They are, and the good thing is we have options forward of the footy. There's those 2. You've got Nick Maric can go there. You've got Nick Lower. You've got other guys like Jacob Thompson who are extremely hard to match up on depending on who they get. So we've got options. So if one's not working or the other's not working, we can actually mix it up and keep working on getting a different structure that will. So it's been good so far.
Shannon, one thing that really plagued Greenvale last year was Addam McPhee brought too much AFL jargon back to local footy, and local footy stopped being fun. And I'm wondering, have you made the adjustment here to know what's going to work in suburban footy and what to leave back in the AFL system and maybe save for another time in another place?
I have. It's a very good question. It was probably one of the first things that I sat down with the leaders and discussed. There's obviously quite a number of other things I'd like to implement, but you don't get the time during the week. But there's a couple of key indicators and key things that we focus on. But at the same time, you've got to realise that you don't get them 5 days a week. You get them for 2 nights a week for an hour and a half at a time. So you've actually got to prioritise what you get through. I think we're starting to get a balance between what we do when we have the ball, and I think they're really starting to get what we do when we don't have it. And I think that really started to stand out today. So pretty simple. Ball's in dispute, work on that. They've got it. Make sure we're setting up the ground we want, and when we've got it, let's make sure that we're brave and playing an exciting brand of footy when we go forward.
The old Alan Jean's mentality sufficing there, but you mentioned we saw 4 quarters of pretty impressive footy from you guys. You mentioned last week you played one bad quarter. What does a bad quarter for Greenvale look like? What was that last week?
For me, it's when we when we are down, and there will be times in games when we are, that we don't control and get back momentum within a game quickly. For me, 2 goals against in a row is too much. So to let 6 go through unanswered was an area that we have done a bit of work on, but Aberfeldy are a good team and they got hold of us. So it was certainly a learning curve for us, which was probably what we needed because we had good practice match form, and to come up against Aberfeldy, who played really good footy and really tested us in that area, will probably be really good for our development.
And I guess that's why you guys really didn't let up today, even though we felt up here, the game was probably over at half-time.
I think, regardless of what the scoreboard is, you've got to reinforce good habits and good standards amongst the boys that you coach, and I think they're starting to understand that. They expect what want them to do. And the great thing is we've got older guys who are actually driving it amongst the players out there. So it's one thing for me to drive it, but it's crucial that we have guys out on the field who can drive it, and our older boys are certainly doing that.
I'd like to focus on you guys, but I want to touch on Avondale Heights. Were you expecting them to be better today?
Well, look, it's a bit hard for me. It's my second game of footy at this level, so I've heard really good things about Avondale over the last couple of years, and I've had mates who have played in this league for a while, and I've seen a few games, but I haven't as much as late. So, we always knew that they'd be dangerous around the ball if they got their tails up, and we all know what Galea and Rose can do, and Taberner if they actually get some space and room to move. So,
were they the focus during the week?
They were one of the areas that we focused on, but as I spoke about before, it's not just one area that you've got to look after. You've got to make it a full ground thing, and the boys certainly got that done today.
No easy games in this division. West Coburg, Maribyrnong Park are your next two opponents. Now, on paper, people like you and I, Dave, might say, yeah, Greenvale should win, but you're the coach, and you're obviously not going to sell that message to the players. So how do you go about avoiding potential complacency going into games where, on paper, Greenvale do look like they've got the better side?
Paper means nothing.
Exactly.
To me.
So how do you sell that message to the players?
Well, I think, once again, it's about reinforcing the work that we've been doing and reinforcing good habits and standards amongst one another. And, I was really big on making sure we got a four-quarter performance today, which we did. So that was a big thing for me. But, you've got to be prepared to play the game out regardless of what the scoreboard says. And they certainly did that.
From our perspective, Addam Maric was the best player on the ground. It sometimes varies for the coaches. Who did you think was your best today?
Look, he probably should have kicked 10 today. Could have had a day out, but he's a good man. He knows his craft extremely well. Campo, obviously, down back with Burns, he played significant roles for us. I thought Fabian DeLuca in the ruck was outstanding. And, I thought guys like Nick Lower and Joey Ghazi were really good again.
Well, Addam Maric's about to join us. Shannon, we're about 60 seconds away from giving you the USB with the game footage on it, so stick around. But thank you very much for joining us on Northwest FM, and we look forward to seeing your Greenvale team again throughout the course of the season.
No worries, boys. Thank you.
Thank you to Shannon Grant joining us on EDFL Radio. And coming in now, it's going to be the Sportsmoves Player of the Day. A dominant day out, 6 goals, all kicked in the first 3 quarters as well, and then very generous to his teammates in the final quarter, handing a few off in the last. Addam Maric, a Greenvale junior, back at his home club. And thanks for joining us. Obviously very nice to win, and after having to leave the game early last week, how did you pull up? What actually went wrong against Aberfeldy, and what was your week like getting up to play for this game today?
Well, it popped my shoulder out in the first probably 10 minutes of the first quarter, so didn't really play much after that. Didn't do too much, to be honest, at training. Had a light run Tuesday, more running rather than skills, and then joined in to a fair bit of training on Thursday, gave a bit of test out, and was fine and strapped up today, so it wasn't too bad.
Are days like today fun? I mean, I know Avondale Heights are a very good side. They clearly weren't at their best today, but you did kick a bag of 6. Your brother got 2 others. When a game gets late, and how many goals did you kick in the second half? Well, 3 goals when the game was probably over. Can you have some fun in situations like that, especially back here where you grew up playing footy?
I suppose I'm enjoying my footy a lot more playing down with the boys I grew up with, playing with Nick as well. It is fun. Look, it's fun when you win. I suppose in the last 10 minutes of last quarter, and you've got the game sort of won, you can, I suppose, sit back and enjoy it a little bit. But Shannon's into us about playing 4 quarters. So last week we played 3. So really sort of had a bit of a focus today to play out right till the end, and felt like we did that. Therefore, you enjoy the win.
As a junior coming back to the club, Addam, did you, try and get down here during your AFL and VFL stints, or is it like coming back after a long stint away?
No. Look, I still see most of the boys. Most of the boys are my best mates. So I try to get down a fair bit. I try to get down a fair bit to the Thursday night dinners, which is good. Sometimes it's hard with your training when you're in your VFL, you train on the same nights. But look, I always follow the boys. Always call them up. I've always followed the club. So it's not like I've been away. It feels like just the other day I was here. So. No, it's not a big change at all.
And I don't wish to go over sore points or old ground, but I really felt as though the AFL system didn't treat you too well. I mean, how tough is it to make that call and say, that's it on the VFL, I'm going to go back to my home club, and sort of, draw a line and say, that's it for the AFL dream?
Look, it was a little bit tough, but I suppose I'd done my time. I got drafted at 17, so I think if you're talking AFL and VFL, it was probably 7 or 8 years there, so I felt like it was the right time to sort of just pull it back a bit, concentrate and stuff outside of footy. come back and just really enjoy my footy, play with my brother, which is awesome, which mum and dad are rapt about because they get to go to one game a weekend, not sort of up and down at different grounds. So, no, look, it was the right time. A lot of my good mates left Werribee as well, which made it probably a little bit easier. So, yeah, it was just the right time.
Adam, I want to ask a more light-hearted question. You had a little bit of time and space on this near wing, and I was about to call the goal of the season.
We had it locked in there. I almost put
the pen had made it to the paper.
I had it locked in as well. That's the problem.
Did any of the boys say anything to you in the rooms this afternoon?
Yeah, I've copped a fair bit. I copped a fair bit from the Avondale people out in the pocket there.
7 does sound better than 6.
Yeah.
2 syllables. Yeah.
No, look, sometimes it's too easy, and I took it a bit too easy there. I was already counting the goal as you guys did. So. No.
And as far as going ahead for the rest of the season, do you set yourself any benchmarks, or coming back to a level of footy that's a bit new, do you come in with an open mind rather than maybe a target for what you actually want out of the season?
Not personally. We set ourselves goals in terms of Greenvale and making the top 4, top 2, playing finals and that sort of stuff. But me personally, just sort of take it on board, get a bit of a feel for the comp again, and yeah, go from there.
2 flags in 3 years, but missing the finals last year.
Yep.
Describe us the hunger of this team. New coach, a couple of new blokes like yourself, and just saw Nick Lower walk past before actually. And tell us a little bit about the hunger, because it is a relatively new side. Not too many names from the back-to-back premierships. What is the vibe like down here at the moment?
Yeah, look, we're a very proud club. So I think it's the first time in 11 years that we hadn't made the final. So it did hurt. So we made sure we had a bit of a focus. We got heaps of numbers down to training during the pre-season, and look, we're doing everything we can to make sure that doesn't happen again and try and add another flag.
Well, Adam, thanks so much for joining us. Congratulations on your performance. We'll have a hoodie for you coming after training at some stage as our Player of the Day, so congratulations on being the Sportsmoves Player of the Day, and good luck with your own form for the rest of the season. Hopefully the shoulder doesn't give you too many more problems.
No worries, guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you to Addam, Maric, Greenvale. 6 goals and best on ground this afternoon for the Jets in their comfortable 71-point win against Avondale Heights. This is EDFL Review. We've got a few minutes with Saade Ghazi. It's never easy to speak after a loss, Saade. We really appreciate your time. What went wrong? Just give us your thoughts on why today played out the way it did.
Well, that's a good question, obviously, but I think you've got to give credit to Greenvale. They were outstanding. They started off well. Had a lot of shots on goal, and probably we were lucky they missed a few early on, but we were pretty poor as well. So, but it's about what the opposition let you do, and overall we got smashed, friendly contested footy, and didn't get enough inside 50s.
It does need to be said that you've probably played 2 of the more improved sides of the division so far in the first 2 weeks. We feel like you've got the personnel, so I suppose the question is how much of this lack of form so far is above the shoulders?
I guess that's something as a coach now you need to be careful that they start doubting themselves and not believing in what we're trying to do. So that's something that you've got to keep at them, because we do have talent at that group, but at this stage we haven't been able to deliver. I mean, you've got to give credit to Pellizzeri and Greenvale. They've improved, but we're still not playing up to where we should be.
Saade, I want to compare this week to last week. Which one for you was more disappointing as a loss, or were they both the same?
They're all disappointing losses. I coach always to win. That's just the way it should be. I think we actually were. The effort was better this week than last week. And a few guys played a little bit better. So, and that's not because of the opposition, but I thought we weren't. Our effort was pretty poor last week. Our effort was a bit better today. I wouldn't say the guys didn't try.
Yeah. And I guess going through the list, I thought that Reece Miles was one of the players that maybe won his battle. Was there any players from your side that you thought beat their opponents today, or across the board were you beat?
Oh, look, I think across the board, I thought a few tried pretty hard. I thought our defenders, our bigger defenders, De Britt and Byrne, did quite well. I don't think, Hill and the other big fella kicked a lot of goals. So I thought they did okay. Our smaller defenders got beaten. I thought Dingalea played pretty well for the opportunities he had. He actually took a lot of good contested marks.
Structurally, do you think that Tanner, obviously up forward at the moment, is that where you anticipate he'll remain, or is?
I doubt it. He played back last week. We just thought we had to throw it around a little bit without panicking, but we just thought Matty Smith is really good at coming off his opponent. So we thought Mick Tanner was really good at pushing up the footy. I didn't think Matty Smith had a huge bearing on the game, but look, they didn't have many bad players at the same time.
I know it's a long time until Thursday night in team selection, but we did notice it was the same 22 last week and this week. Provided there were no injuries to come out of today, can we expect a pretty similar lineup, or are you going to start throwing the Magnus around?
Look, I said to the guys, one thing I learnt from one of my first coaches, which was Barry Round, he really backed these players, and I thought, look, I will keep the same 22 for this week. We lost Andrew Grosso in the warm-up today, so I don't know if you guys noticed that, but so we were one short before we started, and then we lost Tommy Mendeco, 10-minute mark of the first quarter. So we were down to 2. That had no bearing on the result. If you noticed the result in the reserves, that was quite disappointing as well. So there's probably one of the boys that was looking at maybe selection got injured. So to be honest, we're probably not going to have a lot of changes. I'd say there'll be a couple forced with injuries, but there won't be a lot, I wouldn't think.
And we've got to go because we're about to go off air, Saade. But lastly, has this rocked your confidence in this team's ability?
Look, I think you get tested. But when you've been around a long time, you also know that you're only a game away from being at your best. So yes, it does test you, and you sort of worry. But at the same time, there's no hiding away from it. You get back on the horse, you train hard, and we have another crack. And it doesn't get any easier. We've got Abbas away next week.
Well, good luck for that game. It is Anzac Day, of course. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time on Northwest FM. Robbie Castello. He is on the line and joins us now after a sensational win for Marby. Goalless at half-time, but coming back to win in the end over Keilor. 12-11-83 to 8-16-64. Robbie, thanks for joining us on Northwest FM. What a great win for your team today.
Thanks, Taro. Yeah, that was not a bad effort. First half, obviously we had some little panic stations going through, but the boys just stuck to the structures and able to get over the line, which was handy.
So, Robbie, goalless at half-time. What was the reason? Was it inaccurate kicking, or was it just Keilor starving you of entries inside forward 50?
The inside 50 entries were pretty even after half-time. We just couldn't find the scoreboard and get one straight through. So I think it was 7 goals 8 or 7 goals 9. Our skill errors sort of hurt us, and the Keilor's credit, they put a lot of pressure on us, and we weren't able to play the way we really wanted to play. So we had a good word at half-time, and as I said, we just go back to one-on-one footy and go back to basics. And to the boys' credit, in the third quarter, they sort of put us in a position to be able to win the game. And in the last quarter, the boys just turned it on and played the footy that we know that we can play.
Robbie, Adrian Jamieson here. After last week's game against Strathmore, you could have been 2-0 at this stage. So it's been a really good start to the year. Did you actually work on goal kicking during the week?
Yeah, no, definitely. It was something that we definitely spoke about. And I think last year, the year we had, it was always, a good effort, and we let ourselves down with skill errors and goal kicking, and it's something we sort of addressed early in the week after the Strathmore game, and we just didn't want to find ourselves in the same position as last year, going, it was a good effort or, a good loss in the end, and this year we've set the bar high, and we don't want to be that team to be in that position. We know we can give these top sides a run for their money, and we want to win some of these games. So, to the boys' credit, they bounced back after half-time, and I think, goal kicking definitely improved.
Robbie, well done on the win today, mate. One word that we constantly hear out of clubland, especially in the early parts of the season, is improvement. We're looking for improvement. It does seem like we've seen some from your boys. Where has it come from so far? What have you been pleased with in the first fortnight of the season?
Our endeavour at the footy, it's second to none. Even last year, the year we had, it was endeavour from the boys to attack on the footy was always there. We just need to add a little bit of polish and class to the side with a few older boys, and it was something that we were able to add in through the off season, and the boys are just stick to the structures, and if they do that all year, we'll give these top sides a real shake during the year. But as soon as we go away from it, we will have a bit of trouble beating those sides. We don't have the money like some of the other clubs do, so we really rely on the boys just sticking to the same structures.
And just looking at your next few games coming up, Northern Saints next week. You should be favourites in that one, but I suppose you never know. It is a funny division sometimes. And then we're at Greenvale today, and we had a first-hand look at Greenvale. They're your opponent in 2 weeks' time. So a bit of a mixed bag coming up for Maribyrnong Park in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Obviously, our next game, it was sort of, I spoke to the boys before round one, and we're sort of doing 3-week blocks. So our next big game is Northern Saints, and last year we played out a draw at their ground, so we know it's not going to be an easy win for us. We know that we have to stick to the basics and really start off really well to get the job done. So That's our main priority to get the win next week, so the boys know they've got to recover well and come up to Saturday and give it their all.
And Robbie, as we let you go, other better players and other guys who stood out for your team today in what was a very good win.
Back to Callum down to half back, did a really good job on Gordis for us, and then his Paddy or Brandy went back. He sort of had to get thrown in the mix there. He's only a young kid and still under 18 for us, but he's just a battler that really has a crack for it. Our older players really stood up after half time, after it came a little bit of a break, and the loss of Trent, Cam, Nathan. It was really a team effort, to be honest with you. It took every single one of us to really play to the structures and press up, and they did it to a T in the second half, and it just shows what we can do if we do it.
Robbie, thanks so much for joining us on Northwest FM after today's match. Congratulations on the win. Good luck in your preparation for next week, and we look forward to seeing Maribyrnong Park later in the season on EDFL Match of the Day.
Beautiful. Thanks, boys. Have a good one.
And thank you to Maribyrnong Park for getting Robbie Castello to call in. Guys, thoughts on that result? What does it mean for Keilor?
It's a very big result for Maribyrnong Park.
Yeah.
I think that I think for Keilor that they'd be really disappointed, particularly after the way that they've started the season. They started in winning fashion, a very strong win last week, and I think that it's very disappointing. But I think Maribyrnong Park, they're the type of side that we saw last year. They had, they played well in games that they maybe weren't expected to play well in, and they didn't play so well in other games they were expected to win. So it will give them confidence moving forward.
I think it's a more significant result for Maribyrnong Park than it is for Keilor. Would Keilor have gone zipping 3 had they won? They would have, yeah. So that's their first loss for the year, and Maribyrnong Park get themselves on the board, obviously.
Maybe it just shows the evenness of the competition as well. On any given day, anyone can beat anyone, apart from probably the bottom rung of the ladder. But Maribyrnong Park, full credit to Robbie Castello and all the work he's done. Wanted to coach in Premier, come back and played last year, which was a tough year for them. They were in the relegation battle there for a little bit. Full credit to him and full credit to Marby Park. They're a great club.
The problem is with Keilor, none of us really put them into the premiership conversation. They were a finalist last year, and we wouldn't be surprised if they get back there, but we don't really consider them contenders. And is this why? Because they don't win games like this enough?
Yeah, well, I was thinking about that in the third term of this match. We're sort of talking about we talk about Keilor having made the finals last year, Avondale Heights having made the finals last year, Greenvale are obviously pushing for the finals this year. Now Maribyrnong Park. There's going to be teams that come September, as every year there is, that are very stiff.